Good.
May I present the Enigma? We can just dive in, and I'll keep admitting people as they come. But I was trying to think earlier today, Mr. Blue Man. How did did Pleasant introduce us?
She probably suggested me, when you were doing the film. I would imagine she would have suggested me. That just makes more sense.
Yeah, it was either that happened or I tracked you down myself. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember.
But by that point, I know it's been a minute. By that point, we filmed that in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
When was the X-Files show?
95.
Okay, so it had been a number of years. Can I see that you do not have horns right now?
Correct.
When did you not have horns anymore?
A couple years ago. I had them for 22 years. That was back in 96. I got the idea in 95. We were touring around with Nine Inch Nails, and a gentleman, he was putting captive beads in an arm or whatever, and I was like, hey, can you give me horns? And he was like, I don't know, I'll have to do some research. So then during 96, it was 5 times pop out the old and put in the new, and then it was like every 2 months about. And then later I had another gentleman who he did my ear modifications, and then he gave me a flattened set of horns, kind of like Hellboy-ish, because everybody was getting horns, and I was like, well, it's time to do something different. So, and then that same guy also tattooed my eyeballs. So his name's Howie, rhymes with Owie, lunacobra.net. Anyway, but and we roll hard, so we do crazy stuff. I put a bunch of black in my mouth, got stuff like that. John Durante did all the X's on my eyes and around my mouth and stuff. That was fun too. Yeah, I don't know. We do stuff because it's interesting, and discomfort is just something that we're used to, and it's almost kind of like exhilarating because you get a little bit of adrenaline with that. But yeah, so you just do stuff that you think that would be, for me, my personal character is like, I don't know, if Stan Lee was Spider-Man, then he how would I make the character bigger and better, right? So then this is my character, so I'm always trying to figure out, well, how do I make him cooler, but
Well, that's actually very interesting, because the whole purpose today was to talk about your experiences acting in front of the camera, but then there's like multiple layers even above that and below that of acting in real life, and then all the different roles within real life, whether you're in front of the screen or not.
Yep. And most of my is stage work, theater, not so much, not so much the camera, so much as theater. So.
Well, and this is when I told Mike Patton this, when we were getting ready to do Firecracker, I explained it by saying, because he was really nervous about actually being in front of the camera. And I said, Mike, it's exactly the same. It's the only difference is there's a thing there that's filming you, but it's actually easier than being on stage, because if you're on stage, you don't get a chance to redo it.
Yeah.
But when you're on film, if you screw up, you can do it again and no one ever knows.
Yep.
Except the people in the room.
Yeah, and when you lose a crowd, you can feel it. And it's hard to win them back, because you got to win them back by the time you hit that t-shirt sale at the end.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's go all the way back.
Sure.
To let's go all the way. Because you studied music.
Yeah.
When?
6 years old, piano lessons. I had tap and ballet as well, and then later I just had the ballet and the piano, and then I took singing lessons, and then I had flute lessons, and then it was just one thing after another, and just for an appreciation of the arts, so my mom would say. But I think, you know, it's funny because like artist kind of was like a dirty word in my family, and it's really weird because also sports were like a bad thing too for some weird reason, you know. But I don't know why, but music lessons, that was okay, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Those of you guys who have joined us, Kim, Alexandru, hello, welcome. Great. I will keep admitting people as we're going, but there's so much to get through today. I just wanted to just start in. So I'm also recording this so you guys who didn't catch the beginning can see the recording later. Okay, so walk me through the timeline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, you know, it was piano lessons, you know, tap and ballet lessons, and then it went to well, I started flute at 9, so 6 years old was the piano and the tap and ballet, which, you know, you didn't want to tell anybody in grade school that you were taking. Anyway, but you know, social pressures. But then after the flute lessons at 9, then it was all no, I took up the flute, but I only did that in band, which was, you know, like 5th grade, they start with that. But I was also in the Northwest Boy Choir at 9 years old, and actually sang in the Kingdom, which I don't think it's called the Kingdom anymore in Seattle, but it's like some bank or something. Anyway, and then yeah, so then I quit the singing lessons, and then I took on flute lessons, and then I was still having piano lessons the whole time, all the way up until high school. And then yeah, I mean, I sang in the choir in school and all that, and then I took like one semester of community college. But it was too much because I had a job and a girlfriend and going to school, and you know, you can't do all that anyway. And then I don't know, I hit the stage. I was in a band. I thought that, well, so Sideshow happened because I was in a magic club in grade school. So the Bothell Magic Club is a suburb of Seattle. And my brother was into it. And so, of course, I, you know, followed along. And then in there, a gentleman came in, and he became like the president of the little club. And he kind of took me under his wing. This was in junior high. And, you know, he was helping me out with close-up magic. And then I went to this guy, Dean Ueda. He had a bunch of stuff. Some magician died and left stuff all over the place. And so you go and look at books. And there was this little book called Thrilling Magic. And it told all the little impossible things you can do, like swallowing a sword, pounding spikes in your skull, eating fire, all this stuff. And so I was like, wow, you know, here's real magic. Because when everyone believes one thing and you show them another, the truth appears as magic, you know? I mean, swallowing a sword is just like impossible. Well, in that day and age, because I mean, there was no, anything that you wanted that was cool or weird or strange, you had to research it. You had to study it. You had to find it, you know? It wasn't just like a click of a button, you know, on a phone. So all this stuff was really kind of died out and unheard of, you know? I mean, Sideshow anyway. So then in, you know, junior high, there I was like, you know, trying to swallow a sword and stuff like that. And all through high school, I was doing that, and you know, and everything else. And so then I was in a band, and I thought, well, I'd do Sideshow as like a halftime. And you know, I was playing keyboards, and that band was really short-lived. And then I ended up meeting up with those characters from the Lollapalooza Sideshow. This was back in '91, and everybody was doing weird stuff. The amazing Mr. Lifto, you know, putting a coat hanger through his tongue. That was really impressive to me. And, you know, he had his pierced nipples and everything else. And that was an old, you know, Sideshow performance by a guy that he would lift weights too. So he was just carrying on that tradition. The Torture King, he would, shove hat pins and meat skewers all through his body, his cheeks and everything. And he was doing other things as well. He was more in the traditional vein. And then Matt the Tube Crowley, a pharmacist, who thought that doing a gavage tube up his nose into his stomach and then attached to like a beer or an egg, and you see the yolk kind of go really bright yellow through the tube into his stomach, and he thought that was a cool bar stunt. But these characters evolved over the next couple of years, and then we switched casts because Torture King and Tube had enough of the other guy in the show anyway, and then so they left, but Lifto and myself, we were just young kids, and at the time, I guess, and we just didn't care. We were just on a ride, and we just didn't want a regular job, so we stuck it out. I stuck it out till like 98. After that spring tour, then I wanted to do something new, because if the scenery doesn't change unless you're the lead dog, otherwise you just got your nose up the other dog's ass. So you have to, in order to learn or grow, you have to break away and do it yourself. It's the only way you can learn in any of the industries, really. Is just you've got to do it yourself to find out what it's really like. I know that as an actor, you want to know more about production, you want to know more about sets, you want to know more about filming, lighting, and direction, everything. And the only way you get that experience, as you know, is by doing it.
Exactly.
So then I was doing my shows on my own, and I had Cats and the Tiger Lady at the time. But yeah, it was early on, when I first met up with all these characters in '91, that I was like, well, how do I improve my act? How do I make it cooler? And so you kind of envision yourself on stage, and you think, you watch yourself kind of like an animated character doing these things, and you say, well, how would I make him look cooler? Well, what if he was a different color? How would I do that? Well, paint yourself. Now I'd be all gooey. The different lighting, they change the setups and stuff. What if I tattooed my entire body? Wow, I'd pay to see that. So then it's just a small idea, but it's the amount of more force you put behind it that makes it a great one, right? Like Famous Amos chocolate cookies. So then it was just a matter of, I called up Spalding and Rogers, and they have those ads all the time in the tattoo magazines back in the day, and said, how much ink do I need to order to cover the whole body? And they're like, we don't know. Call us when you find out. So, I ordered inks and stuff like that, but I couldn't really, I knew I needed someone else to help me out, because some places you can't reach, And so Cats and the Tiger Lady, who I met on Lollapalooza in '92, she was also interested in doing her entire body. And so, we got together, and I gave her all the money for equipment. It was all the money I had. It was like $1,300. And everybody else in the troupe was like, oh, you're a fool. You're getting robbed. She's going to take your money and whatever. But she came up to Seattle. She was in Atlanta. And she came up to Seattle, and we had the month of January '93 off. And she did all the lines. It was a hard month. Puzzle pieces everywhere, on the toilet seat, on the bed sheets, on the walls, and we got through it. And at that time, tattoos above the neckline or past the wrists or ankles, those were just not done. And there's a number of reasons to not do those. First of all, tattoos in those areas, they don't take that well. It's not going to be great art. It's hard to heal. They see the sun and everything all the time. So then when those tattoos get really ugly, then you walk down the street and they go, hey, who put that junk on you? Well, this guy down the street. Well, I'm not going to be his customer. So by doing those spots, you lose customers, because it's really hard to get the ink, to stay in those areas and to react always consistently well. So for me to do all of this totally untraditionally and just have one giant design was kind of like, I don't know, seeing Noah's Ark, especially these tattoo artists. This is like the Holy Grail. And so young a guy to do this with his body, what's wrong with this guy? He's insane. But they loved it. They loved the spirit of it. They loved the fact that I just went for it and didn't care and just you know, I was just in it, and it was just a magical time, you know, because nobody had ever done anything like that. But if you did do your research, you'd find some evidence of the great Omi, who was a guy who put like stylized spirals over a bunch of old work he had, and became the zebra guy. And then there was a guy who put leopard spots all over his body up in the Isle of Skye in Scotland. So these are old guys that, you know, did it, but they didn't really have the impact on the society and stuff. But being part of the Lollapalooza Sideshow, which at that point, you know, Lollapalooza was an amazing thing, 92, and William Morris Agency had its eyes on it. And so it's really like should have been called the William Morris Agency Sideshow, because they're the ones that put us all around the world. And I became the most famous tattooed man in history because of that. Everybody else, you know, followed suit. Of course, Ripley's and Guinness, and they posted all kinds of crazy stuff about me. It wasn't even true, but you know, because you know, there's no way to call anybody. There was no cell phones or nothing. You couldn't verify. There wasn't even email back then. You know, I remember I had a message phone number so I could check it on any phone, because you know, just traveling around, and I paid my dues, man. There wasn't any, you know, only one person got, you know, really paid for doing that show, and the rest of us followed along. And I remember we opened for Nine Inch Nails in Madison Square Garden, 2 sold out nights, and you know, I stayed in a squat in the freezing cold because I wanted to hang out downtown for a minute. But then, you know, everybody else stayed in like some cheap old hotel in New Jersey because it was just cheap, you know. But then I don't know. So we paid our dues, and we grew in our performance levels. And I mean, I didn't even talk during those shows. I was just, you know, the monster, you know, growling and grunting and stuff. And that's, you know, it was 95 that, of course, you know, Darren Morgan wrote that script for the X-Files that featured myself, and it was Kim Manners directed it. He's gone now, but smoking anyway. Just saying. And then, but yeah, they were a little bit at odds doing that, but it was really amazing because it was a high production, you know, and television is a real quick turnaround. Not like, you know, the films like you're doing. Television's like, you know, got to be done now, right now, you know. So Kim would have like a set going, and he'd say, okay, action. And then, okay, now set up this shot. And then you go to another set and go action. And then, okay, now set up this shot. And you go to, so you had like 3 sets going all at once, you know. It was crazy. But yeah, I don't know. Walk me through that experience. Was that the first time you were in a show, like on TV? Yeah, that was did lots of talk shows, and, you know, every breakfast and, you know, cereal show, you know, those little, you know, Carol and Marilyn, and all that, you know, just crazy stuff back then. You know, Ricky Lake and all that stuff. But
well, and you're performing there also. I mean,
yeah.
your character.
Yeah. So it was you know, those shows are kind of cool because, you know, you get to, but they're just so, I mean, they're really kind of tacky. And it's not like a script. It's like a reality TV show, you know. They just film it, and if it's too much, they'll just cut it out. But with the X-Files, that was a real, like, here's a script, you know. I didn't have any lines though, except the last one, so it wasn't a big deal on that. But they didn't want me to act. They just wanted me to kind of do the part as if it was just, you know, I was just walking down the street. So there wasn't really like, because, you know, I'm from the stage where it's, you know, guys and dolls, big as life, you know. But then television is all like, you know, you just want, you know, oh, he moved his nose, or he winked his eye, and that's like action, you know. So especially the deadpan way that X-Files is shot, you know.
Right.
So it's really funny. But yeah, it was crazy. Have you ever had any like acting classes per se, or just performance? Well, okay, I take that experience back. All right, so actually, one summer my mom enrolled me in an acting class. I was just a kid. I barely remember much of it. It was like, it was just a way to get, you know, kids to do something during the summer, I guess. And I never really thought about it until, like, you know, later in life, you know, like, you don't even remember it or care, you know, who cares? But that was kind of interesting and odd. I don't know. You know, my brother, he's very, he's zany and such. And he actually works at the South California college there, the UCLA or whatever. There's like a South branch behind the orange curtain next to the mouse. So he like plays for dance classes and stuff over there. But yeah, he just wanted to do piano. And so me, I have a whole bunch of other kind of survival skills, I guess you call it, artistically.
Right.
So as far as like the COVID thing, you know, there's complainers and then there's people that hustle. You know, it's like, okay, this moves this way, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to do, and so people that are really on their stuff and creative, they'll find ways to keep it all happening. You know, keep it going. They're not going to let anything stop them. You know, the world, no.
Right. Exactly.
We're the world. We're on this little screen right now. So.
Totally. Exactly. Well, I asked about the acting thing because while I had seen X-Files and I'm sure I saw clips of Sideshow stuff from Lollapalooza. I'm sure I had to have. I don't remember specifically if I did, but there had to have been stuff on MTV and, like, you know, all this stuff. Well, first of all, I was just like, okay, this guy who's blue, but looks completely naturally as if this is how he came out.
Yeah.
Like I know it's been made. You have produced this. You have made this. You have created this. But when I see it on other people, when I see other people doing any kind of body modification that doesn't seem so true to them, it doesn't look like it fits them. But when I saw you on the screen, I thought, wow, this is an entity that feels totally like it has always been this way. You know, and I don't know if when you made the decision and the fact that you made it with like a truth, like it came from like a true core place that was like a realness that made it came out real, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, a few years later, you show up in Wamego, Kansas, and we're gonna make Firecracker.
Yeah.
And I see you act on screen.
Yeah.
With an Oscar nominee who also won 4 Golden Globes.
Yes.
The daughter of one of the most famous actress or acting coaches in the world. One of the Go-Go's, Mike Patton, like all of this, and all of them have different styles, right? Like, I want to, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to describe how it was to work with all of those guys. But what I found so interesting was the ease and how natural, like how did you know? I mean, I know you're super smart and you are incredibly creative. Oh, come on, give me a break. Because you also scored a lot of the music in that movie, which we'll get to also in a minute. But I was amazed at how good of an actor you were, and how it was so natural and it fit the scene. I mean, you were technically playing a character with your same name, right? But it was still a character. Like, it wasn't just you walking around doing stuff. Had you been approached to do anything like that post X-Files, or was that sort of like the first time?
You know, that was it. I mean, X-Files was just I mean, you know, a lot of people would say, oh, I'm not going to get a tattoo because it'll interfere with my acting career. It's like, well, I got a tattoo on my whole body, and that got me an acting career. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, when you're doing a show, night after night after night, you know, you get really tight. You know, I was doing, you know, 5 shows a week. It'd be 2 on and then a day, and then 3 on and then a day. And that's when you're so tight. And when you have, you know, once again, William Morris Agency backing it to where you're doing these giant shows all the time and your guarantees are so high, and you know, the fans, massive amounts of fans every night, you know, to where your ego just goes out the window, and you know, you're standing there talking to people that make a lot of money doing their art. But, you know, I may be standing next to Trent Reznor, but he's a musician and I'm a musician. So I don't see it, you know, such a big rift between us in that we're both musicians, you see? So there's not, you know, it's like, you know, I'm saying, like, he's more successful because what? Because of popular opinion and you know, and all this other stuff. But because, I mean, he was just an underground artist too at one point, you know. I mean, we're all start somewhere. So as far as people go, I don't really find a difference in, like, you may be the president, but you're still a guy that drinks a beer and you know, does whatever, you know. We all, you know, we're all the same, you know, just different. We just have different ideas that stimulate us and make us do crazy stuff, you know. Part anxiety, part neurosis, part, you know, schizophrenia. I mean, we do stuff, and that's a cool thing, because when you think of it that way, if you just pick up a guitar, you're just as good as Jimi Hendrix, because you're a musician, you know, and you count yourself among them. And acting is like, there's something about acting that's kind of really interesting, and that is that you've got to have, and this is also for any stage, for anything you do performance wise, you have to have adrenaline at your fingertips. And if I go to like a bunch of people and they're all like getting ready to do a show or something like that, I go, you know, grab onto your hate, you know, because, you know, love, oh, you know, you sit there and, you know, you're comfortable in your blankets and you're in love. But as soon as, like, you hear the garbage man go by and, wait a minute, did he pick up the trash or did he just pass by my, you know what? And then you get upset, and now all of a sudden you're going to do something. Well, that adrenaline, that drive, that's what makes stuff happen. It's, you know, so I have tons of love in my heart for my hate, because that's what pushes things. That's what makes stuff. I'm not going to put up with this. I'm going to do something, you know. I'm going to write a story. I'm going to create something. I'm going to, you know, and that, you know, it's that adrenaline. So before you go on stage, you take a hammer and you smash your thumb, and now you go on stage because you got adrenaline right there. You know, if they tell you, if you, especially when you're in a performance troupe where you really hate the person that's like directing, you know, because he'll say something or she'll say something that just pisses you off. Like, you just can't even, because you think you're an artist and your ego just got shot, man, you're going to go on that stage. You're going to prove them, man. You're going to do it, you know, because why? Just because of the rage, you know? And I think being an oversensitive kid in a, you know, and just, it just makes it just, the anxiety level pushes you either to clam up and sit in the corner and don't talk to anybody, or you become some performer because you're enraged and you're out there and you're going to do stuff and you're going to entertain, or you're going to, you know, it's anxiety, I think, and is just, you know, there's fight and flight, you know. So for me, yeah. The more crowd and the more energy I'm getting, it's just the more anxiety, and the more I'll overact and I'll say crazy stuff and I'll just go and do whatever, because, you know, there's not a lot of filter here, because I figure, I mean, I don't know who cares, you know. I'm punk rock, you know. It's like, it's right between magic and punk rock, you know.
Totally. That's a great way to sum it up. Magic and punk rock is exactly the truth. Okay, so did you have a good time shooting Firecracker?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Katzen and I were going through some rough periods there. But at the same time that it was funny. Okay, so one of the most beautiful experiences was, of course, Karen Black, because she had that amazing, like, old world flair, that kind of just the way she'll move and present herself in like some sort of a European gypsy, you know, from old, you know, like a I don't know, just elegance, but yet, you know, kind of, I don't know, like a palm reader at a carnival at the same time, you know.
Yes.
And it just like, you're like, wow, just yeah, it's strange how her presence alone was just, it's just magical completely. And then Mike Patton, I'm sure I kept saying, hey man, can I tour with you? Hey, can I tour with you? I was probably like a like a puppy dog on his ankle there about that. But yeah, he's very much, you know, people act just like their characters, you know, they act just like they are as a human. Like a dog acts like a dog, and a snake acts like a snake, and it's just their nature, you know. And humans are very much like that too. You know, if you have a broken leg, well, in your mind you also have a broken leg, so you act as you have a broken leg in your mind as well as physically. You understand what I'm saying? So if you're a big guy, you'll act like a big guy if your mind is and your body are one and the same, which they are. They're not separate, you know. So it's just kind of interesting. Anyway, I'm sorry, it's a little philosophical and a little bit off it, but they act so much in their character, even just offset. That's who they are, you know. And it's method acting, I guess, but at the same time, but then when it comes to, once that camera is on, they really become the epitome of who they are. Like, it's almost like truth is, even though it's a facade, it's really truthful about who they are on the inside. I felt, I don't know, did you get that too?
Yes, totally. And you know, I've seen it since. I'm not going to mention who it was, but I worked with another very, very famous person in a movie who had to play a really, really dark part. It was like an abusive alcoholic cutter, and who was like a wife abused, you know, like, just, it was a terrible person, right? And he isn't, you know, I don't think.
Yeah.
But had he went there 110%, and in such a real way that was so raw and gritty, that after he saw it, it brought up like feelings of repulsion or revulsion. Like he could not stand this movie, even though he then won a bunch of awards for it. Right. But I often wonder, I'm like, oh, sometimes, yeah, anything that we're creating and doing is coming from ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And or through ourselves. So even if we're taking it out of the majestic sphere of the universe, it's moving through our bodies.
Yeah.
And we're the ones translating that into this world.
Yeah, for sure.
So if we're the translator, we're going to incorporate a lot of our own language in the translation.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
What was I going to ask you? I just had this idea of something to ask you. Well, let's talk about music for a minute.
Okay.
So do I have this understood that Trent Reznor gave you a bunch of stuff at one point? Like, he was no longer going to make music anymore, and he was going to, I don't remember if I have the whole story.
Okay. So here I am, you know, he's like, oh yeah, I want to produce your music, you know, and do an album, you know, and so I was like, well, I better move down to New Orleans. That's where his studio is, so that I could just be right there. And if he has time for me, I can just, you know, ride my little bicycle over there, and we can do stuff or whatever. And I'd be familiar with the place, so it wouldn't be like I had to fly all the way over there just to say hi and then fly all the way back, you know. So, and Katzen wanted to move down there anyway, so we moved down to New Orleans, and unfortunately, he got exceptionally busy, opening for David Bowie and stuff like that. So all I did was, if I went there, which I think I went there maybe 3 times or something like that, and you just see him go from one room to the next, really quickly, and you just wave at you and then he's gone. So it was kind of a waste. It was a waste of time to just sit there at his studio to think, oh, I'll get to talk to this guy. It was better to just, just do whatever I wanted to do and do creative stuff, get more tattoos, whatever, work on music myself. But he had something called a K2000, which is a keyboard that had like orchestral ROM in it and whatever. And I wanted to get that. And he's like, oh, I can get you a discount at there's Nadine's over there in LA. And I was like, okay. So he's like, just call me back. So I wait, and I call him back, and whatever, and this and that. And finally he's like, you know what? Here, just take my studio board here. And so he gave me a rack mount, K2000, and then he also gave me a DX7 to control it with. Like, here he is walking the DX7 out to my van and I was living in New Orleans, which at the time, I mean, it still is kind of a rough place, but before all hurricane and all that stuff, it was even rougher. And all the time I was afraid my gear would just get stolen out of whatever beat up little house I was living in. So I I was dang lucky to have nobody mess with any of my stuff. Of course, I was also completely tattooed, and a lot of people didn't, that there's a little bit of voodoo there. So if you had I tied a chicken's foot with 7 knots and put that on my door, that was theft deterrent. And because
again, right, I have forgotten at this point. I have forgotten that you are tattooed from head to toe, because I'm just listening to the story and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I imagine there weren't all that many people coming to attack you.
Yeah, no. At one point, I was like trying to get a place to live in the 9th Ward, which is completely black, and it's like, and those houses aren't. They're made completely out of caulk. Anyway, it was an Asian lady who was on the phone. I said, yeah, I got rent. I'll come down. Oh, okay, yes, please come down right now. So I came down there to give her the money on the place, and she took one look at me and said, no, I don't want the cops here. And I'm like, what? So, as far as diversification, it was just funny that she wouldn't let me be in this place where it wasn't like a hotel, man. They're just not, they're like lizards living
right.
in space, so anyway, but it's just funny, people and people are, I don't know. And I mean, it's funny to go from all of that to like, now we've got, Black Lives Matter and all this stuff. And like, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's a different world, than what we grew up in and all that. It's just phone, cell phone, and it's just totally, it's wild, huh?
It totally is. So did Trent ever produce anything or release anything of yours, or?
No, he was busy. So and I put together another soundtrack for the show, and that it's still at Lollapalooza Sideshow all those years. It was like in 90. That was like end of 95 towards 96 or whatever. It was 96. So about mid 95 to mid 96, I was living in New Orleans. And now if I go back there in the French Quarter walking around, I get stopped constantly, like, hey, you're moving back, or what are you doing in town? Like, as if it'd been there the whole time. And I was a long time ago. Yeah.
No, that's good.
But yeah,
you're a little unforgettable.
Yeah, people said they're watched by me. What do you know? But yeah, it's just a funny, crazy thing. But yeah, so that just didn't pan out. But that's fine. I mean, he's doing great too. He's a smart guy, going into soundtracks and stuff. He's done some great work, I thought, and so that's cool. Yeah, and my stuff is, well, it's.
Did you release something? Like, have you released stuff music-wise? Because if you haven't,
I mean, well, you mean this album I just happened to just make just now? Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
you can get this. If you want to plug, here it is. I mean, it's not to say that I don't have the comic books. This is number 4 of the comic. And then, I mean, I don't know if I have my own line of inks now. So if you wanted to pick, and then, of course, everybody knows The Mask, you know, okay, wait. This is what we do as artists, right? We got, okay,
yes.
Well, I just happen to have it sitting here planned out. Anyway.
Yes. No, that's perfect. Yes. See? Exactly.
Anyway, just saying. Yeah.
Amazing. Do you have, because I would love it. I mean, somewhere on hard drives thousands of years ago, there are the music from Firecracker that you made for part of it. Is so cool that you need to release that or have that. Is it on any of the things that are out currently that people can buy?
No.
Well,
why do you sell it? Why do you sell the score to Firecracker and then?
Well, I feel like maybe we tried to. I mean, we're also talking. This was, 20 years ago.
Yeah, just put it out there. Do it.
I just need to find it. But
okay,
while we're talking, for those of us who are here and listening and paying attention, and also forever who listens to this later, if you go to vimeo.com/on-demand/Firecracker, you can see it, because even though it's been released and pirated and whatever the hell globally, all of the versions that came out originally after it was in theaters at the Landmark Cinemas in 2005, then it came out on DVD. But the quality of the DVD release, which is what was used to do all the pirating, isn't so great because the DVD quality is significantly less. So what I did was, a few years ago, I went back to one of the masters and exported the high-def Blu-ray quality from the master, and that's what I've put on Vimeo On Demand. So in fact, when I watched it, had never seen it that clear.
Nice.
Yeah. And it really holds up. It's crazy how, at that time, what a weird movie that was. I mean, it still is a very strange movie, but I was watching it not too long ago, and had it been released last week, it would have been just as, it's not dated by any means.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw it?
I don't even know.
Back then.
I just haven't seen it in a while. I should see it again. I'm just doing all this other crazy stuff, painting banners and trying to manage a tattoo shop a bit, and then with there's just a lot that's going on all the time. It's funny, like, I kind of planned my day around this because I didn't want to miss it. But I guess right now I'd be outside painting. But
amazing.
Yeah, it just works. Yeah.
Well, I wish I lived closer, because I need to. Where's my Enigma? Do you remember this guy?
Oh snap! We need to fix that up.
We need to fix it up and color it in, because at that time I didn't have any color, and now I have color places.
Yeah, and I'm a lot better at doing that kind of stuff.
Yes, Lynn. I was about ready to open it up for Q&A too. So
cool.
Yeah, Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious. Do you know Steve Truitt?
I do.
Okay, I thought so. I was like, I feel like I remember seeing you with him at one point a long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of the Villain Arts shows, which I do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, do you still talk to him, or?
No, not so much. He and I don't think we see eye to eye on a lot.
Yeah.
He doesn't like to smile.
No, no, he's
that's kind of a riff, like I like people that can smile, and you have a beautiful smile, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Steve doesn't smile much, but I don't know. So it's tough to, I don't know.
Totally get it. I was just curious. I just remember about 12 years ago or so seeing you with him. So. Yeah,
we never really did hook up.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a joke. Never mind. I'll tell you another joke later. All right. Darn it.
Does anybody else?
I never did that suspension stuff. Nope.
No, it was intense. Yeah.
Like what Cub Scout sleep, because never mind. It's another joke. Anyway, sorry. Because they sleep in tent. What?
You couldn't help it.
Well, jokes. I mean, there's a million of them. I don't know. Pick one. I don't know. I tell the jokes that I think are funny. And there's nothing worse than a smug male, except one that laughs at his own jokes.
Totally.
Question.
Yeah, Stephanie?
Well, I think I remember seeing your picture. I always wondered how you slept or how it felt when you hit, one of those horns.
Yeah.
When they were in your head.
Yes.
Did it hurt?
Yes. A lot, because the skin is very thin there. So that's one of the reasons why I had the horns taken out, is because they were kind of a liability. Just like they might come out when they decided to, and I might be in a tour schedule that's a little bit rough. So then I didn't want to have to deal with that. And I was a little bit too nice, and they took them back.
What, the horns? No.
You got to earn them, They don't just give them to anybody.
The little kids would grab them, right? Little kids would come up and try to grab your horns.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a big deal, but yeah. I mean,
I would think it would be a big deal.
Yeah, well, it's just, I mean, you get used. I mean, I had them for 22 years. I was pretty used to them. But the last set were really big, and they were just a little bit. The skin was really thin on the bottoms of the points. They're rounded off points. So, but they're just like a liability. And I was going back and forth doing European shows and stuff like that, and so there wasn't really I just had to kind of say, okay, you know what? I want to wear hats again. And so, so you find somebody and they help you out, and they, pop them out, and then, and then you got a different look or a different style. I don't know. They were something that I came up with, procedures that they didn't even have back in the day, back in 91, when I wanted to do this whole, tattoo thing. I also thought of putting like metal plates underneath the skin, and then having like little screws coming out, and then you could put different jewels or gems around the eyes and stuff. Yeah. I also thought about splitting a tongue they didn't have scalpels back then in the arena of body modification, but I thought about doing piano wire through piercings through the tongue. So then you just work them through and eventually rip all the skin through, so you have a split tongue. All these ideas came to me in 91, because I was thinking, if the body's just material, then you can do stuff to it. But I never did split my tongue, and then finally those little subdermals, the little piercings with the little studs and stuff, those came in, dermal anchors and stuff, whatever it is, those came into actually happening, but I never bothered with them because they just would have been more of a hassle anyway. And then the horns idea I got, and I stuck with that because it really gave the illusion of somebody actually having horns growing out of their head. And you couldn't see that it was anything. You couldn't tell, he had an operation, because the incisions were behind the horns. So when you looked at an image of myself, you just didn't know. And being a puzzle, I like to make people think, sure. So people just didn't know if it was real or not or what. And so, that's why you had Guinness World Records saying that I've got horns growing and all this kinds of crazy stuff, because you couldn't, it was under the skin, so you couldn't tell. It was just great. I don't know. It was really worth it.
Whenever I saw you with the horns, I always envisioned what it would be like to sleep and turn your head on a pillow with those horns on it.
Yeah, well, the subconscious does a lot for you. It wakes you up when you want to wake up. And if you've got an operation somewhere, your body's not going to roll over. Just you're your body, your subconscious is still working even when you're asleep. And so it's still listening for sounds. Like you may hear airplane may crash in your backyard, but that little knock of UPS, you're going to hear that, you know? So your mind kind of picks and chooses what it's going to hear and what it's not. It moves when it needs to move. So when you're asleep, and let's say you had a tattoo or you got your ear all cut up or something, you're not going to roll onto it because your subconscious keeps you from doing that. So yay for the subconscious.
Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Does anybody else have any questions? You guys? All right. Feel free to just pop in anytime if you do. There's only maybe 5 or 10 more minutes left and then we'll go. But so now you're doing, you have a tattoo shop that you're working in.
Yes.
You go to conventions.
Yes. Well, they're on hiatus now, but yeah.
Right. But you have a tour schedule that's sort of tentative, that's still happening, or you don't know yet?
It's gone for the year. No more Villain Arts shows. The Elitch Garden shows, not sure. They're still trying to figure that out. I got a message saying they just don't know right now. So I'm still kind of waiting for that.
Right.
Probably if it does happen, it might just be Saturday and Sunday nights. Otherwise, or it might just not. I just might not be there this year, which is kind of sad because Elitch Gardens is a really fun place, and the people there just love my really awful jokes. So I don't know. I guess they just like all that kind of seedy humor, and it's it is what it is. But yeah, I don't know. And then I've changed my show so many times. Like the first time I did it was one way, and then this last time I did all these characters and stuff. I was a pirate and a wizard and a Sith Lord and all these things in the show, and then now I'm back to doing. Now I've changed the show again, and I got another inspiration for doing a different style of show. So I keep changing it up because, well, I'm bored of it, and also it just keeps people coming back. I even have a wheelchair show.
Really?
Yeah, wheelchair is fun because it's like it's just weird. I don't know. It's funny what people think is cool or what they react to. Like you may have something that's really a tough stunt to do, and they just kind of go, "Oh, that's cool." But then you do something that doesn't take any talent, that's just ridiculous, and they, "Oh, that's just amazing."
Right. Of course.
That's just the audience, So
right. That's so amazing. Where can people buy your merchandise? Only in public, or do you have something online?
I don't have anything. I'm technologically inept, and I don't. I'm just not. I'm not. I don't know if you know, but like, I'm not really a big. I went 12 years without a bank account. I don't know if you know that, but like, so like, I'm. You can come to my tattoo shop, and I could sell you something. That's out in Sidney, Nebraska. It's about 2.5 hours north of Denver. So if you're out in Denver shopping, first stop, and you thought you might take a little excursion, you could go straight up and see the shop. It's just on Main Street there, Illinois Street. I don't know. You could message me and say, "Hey, I want this," or tell me what, should I send you a money order or what? And I'm like, okay,
all right. Well, okay. So then what should I put? So if people wanted to contact you in like the text, how do people get you? How do people find you?
My website. It's
okay.
theenigmalive.com.
Great.
Yeah.
Theenigmalive.com.
Instagram's the same, The Enigma Live. Facebook is cool because I have like some sort of fan site thing, but they want you to use your real name, which is how do you be the Enigma if everybody's calling you by some childhood playground name that you got bullied. Anyway, I'm just saying that, like, I'm not a child on a playground anymore. If anything, it would be Mr. or Sir. And I didn't tattoo my entire body just to be called some silly kid name. You know, I'm the Enigma. I made this. I created this, and there's a lot of pride there. So I just wish that Wikipedia would get a clue, but you can't change any of the stuff on your own page, they say. But then you have people that'll just say stupid stuff, change stuff. Wikipedia is all full of bullshit, just like you know, Guinness is the same bullshit. They just don't. They just push stuff up, and they don't actually call you up and say, hey, we just want to clarify what's real and what's not. They don't care. They just
No,
put
of course
stuff.
they don't.
So, but the best thing is to go to my website, theenigmalive.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, cool. Before we go, you've given us a lot of really good advice and tips, not just about acting or performing, but being a human being and a creative person today. What was the number one, if you have one, maybe you don't, were you ever told a piece of advice that you were like, aha, and you carried with you even through today? By anybody?
I don't know. Sacrifice your body for your art. I mean, yeah, art. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. That was kind of like, it was more like sacrifice your body was like when you're in PE and like people are like, you know, running really hard and stuff. I don't know. I'm sure there were a bunch of things. I can't think of anything right off the bat. You know, shoot, now's the time to impart some wisdom. And all I can say is that it's passion, you know, and passion is fire, and fire is, you know, also rage, and, you know, use it, be angry, vent, make stuff. Artists they have to make stuff. You could lock them in a prison cell. They'll take blood and paint the walls because they don't have a choice. They have to make stuff. They have to do stuff. Artists are like, you know, it's like, you know, somebody in a wheelchair is because they don't have a choice. They have to do stuff. So if you're an artist, then you're doing stuff. And if you're not doing stuff, then you're not really being an artist, are you? You're just being a couch potato or whatever. Like it's easy to just watch movies or play video games, but that's never going to satisfy an artist. They're going to be like, darn it, I need to do something. I need to make something happen. You know, my mom was always about, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? And what are you doing? It's that whole thing about men have an empty box where they can just sit in front of the TV and they go, what are you doing? And you're like, nothing. And they just can't handle it because their mind is in all spaghetti, and you're a man, so you go step by step by step, you know, real simple, basic. So it's like, so yeah, having my mom in my brain all the time going, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? What are you doing? You know, oh, geez, you just can't erase your mother out of your brain, you know? It's just that, I don't know. So yeah, if you're just always asking yourself, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? And not just that, but what are you doing for this project? Or what are you doing for that project? Specifically, how am I making my tattoo shop better today? What am I going to do? What kind of art thing can I put in the shop that's better or make people interested in it? Or it's all about the product. And if the product is you, then you got to improve yourself. And if it's the product is, you know, and it being a show owner, you're painting the banners, you're driving the car, you're preparing for war, you know? So that's I live in a war battleground, you know. I don't know. It's not all it's not all ribbons and candies, you know.
No, of
you
course. But any business person, entrepreneur who is also then an artist totally knows what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, I am so thankful that we were
What
able
about
to
you,
have
Steve?
this. Me?
Yeah. What was the line that changed your life?
There were two. And Joel Schumacher, the director, told them to me, and he died just a few weeks ago, actually.
Oh.
One of them was never take no for an answer.
Yeah, it's good.
Which I never have. The other one
Yeah.
was you can do everything.
Yeah.
just not all at the same time.
Yeah. No, it's true. You know, I've been doing blue puzzle pieces since '93 and watching everybody do their techniques and stuff. And I never actually did anything but blue puzzle pieces. And now that I have a shop, it's like, oh, hey, you got to do this tattoo. I've never done that tattoo before. I've never done anything like that before. But you know what? I'm going to do it, because if you don't, then you die. So it's survival. So I've tattooed this stuff. I tell them, hey, this is the first time I've ever done this, but I've seen billions of people do it all my whole life, the last 30 years. So let's do this. And it turns out great, because you got to believe in yourself. You know, you got to believe you can do it, and then you can do it. It's confidence is the first rule in tattooing. If you don't believe that line is there, that line is not there. You stretch the skin and you believe that, because you can't see the line. It's a puddle of ink. You just got to know and believe where those needles are and make it happen. So you're working in the dark, and life is like that. You're just working in the unknown, but you just got to believe that you know, you got to believe that you can do it, and because you can. There's so much negativity in the world, and there's so much, you know, darkness, but like, you just got to say, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do it. I have to. And if I can't, and I die, then so what? Then you die, because, well, everybody dies. So what, you know?
Right. Exactly.
You know.
I do.
I should make it in less words, but you know, you got the idea.
Yes, it was beautiful. Lovely to see all of you. I'm so happy that you could all join us. The Enigma. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Enigma.